you have embraced this technology. You've been playing with it. You've done this with your eyes open, acknowledging that there are very serious dangers here, but you've been trying to compel me about all of the useful things that I should understand that it is capable of. And I've challenged you on, okay, that's all well and good. I believe the useful stuff exists, but the net effect here is so frightening. Why are you not more concerned about it? Do you want to lay out your position? You want me to remind you what you said? What do you think?
I mean, you'll tell me what answer I gave you last time around, but I'll say a couple things. I think I'm doing it because I'm concerned, right? I think the capability, like if we get out of this somehow, the answer is still in the thing, right? It's going to be useful to get us out of it, as in the same way that it gets us, in more trouble. Like I don't foresee our prior state coping well with that. But then again, I didn't foresee our prior state coping well with itself, and again, I think we share a lot of priors there, which is that, we were, our civilization, and I speak like a technologist. I know you have different, you get there in perhaps slightly different ways. But for me, like if you know how technology is built, or how organizations are built, which is another thing I've spent, many years thinking about. What whenever you go into the sausage factory, right, is how many things are built with, duct tape, chewing gum, whatever, on top of duct tape and chewing gum on top of duct tape. Like nothing that, it's almost like you see this thing as like, there is no way this works. And yet somehow it kind of sort of does, but badly, right? And everybody's suffering for it, but it kind of sort of keeps up and keeps going. And we add another layer on top and it gets maybe a little bit better for some time until that gets worse too. And you can see that anywhere from like legislation to the kernel of the Linux operating system that runs, basically the world or whatever. All of these things are, these path dependent piles of junk on top of junk that kind of sort of would keep it going, barely, right? Like, because if it stops working, then somebody has to dive in and fix it, and we just keep going. But collectively, all that stuff is a Rubik's cube, right? And a Rube Goldberg
machine is what it is.
I completed the wrong tokens, Bret. Can you believe it?
No. Do better is what I would tell the LLM.
We're not supposed to hallucinate, right? Anyway, it's a Rube Goldberg machine, like our supply chain, for instance, right? That some butterfly goes the wrong way in Beijing, and then we just, I guess no, what was it, like baby formula for you? It's like, oh yeah, no, that was totally foreseeable. Like it was the baby formula that was the most vulnerable to somehow, right? And after the fact, everybody's got a story, right, about how the FDA's regulations, blah blah blah. You didn't tell me that beforehand, so please spare me, right? Like that's the whole point, is that these things are extremely fragile. And barely working, and we keep treating them like they're not. Like we keep pushing them harder and harder, print more money, do more wars, whatever it is that we're doing that has systemic risk, right? So I was honestly kind of resigned to the fact that things are, here's a problem I have as well. Actually, let me
you haven't gotten to the punchline of that one. I think people will be confused by what you've just said. You have a incredible stacking of fragile components that make these systems that work, which means they are, I've already used the word fragile, but the problem is you have all of this path dependency, what in biology might be called historical contingency, that results in mechanisms that function but that assume that everything about the context is going to continue to be what it is. And you perturb the context at all, and it reveals all of this fragility, and you get cascading failures, right? And what your point, I know because we've talked about this, is that LLMs and the AGIs that will come out of them are capable of telling you how to reconstruct the system and remove all of that path dependency, right, so that your system is robust. And the point is that makes us safer in the end.
Yes.
Now, I would argue that this cuts both ways. And it cuts both ways because you're right about the historical contingency or path dependency and the huge danger that comes out of it. But the problem is we are in that very spacecraft you have described with the duct tape and the baling wire. And we are about to experience a massive set of disruptions downstream of the AI that are going to reveal every one of those fragile links. So as much as the thing is in principle capable of telling us how to revise the system so that those things are no longer a problem, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to trigger the cascading failures.
We're going to be pushed in a situation where things are going to be failing and we're going to be fixing them. And we sure hope that we get better at fixing them than failing. At our normal pace, there's zero way we could do that. Thankfully, we have LLMs. So, it is going to be chaotic. There's going to be adjustments, discovery of all sorts of minima and maxima that we previously thought we knew, and all of a sudden they're all, the only thing I'm saying is that there are end games, or at least, well, mid games, visible, where we have drastically simplified the stack below our conscious, level of, everyday civilization, and improved it a lot. Right. And the thing with, by the way, with path dependency and context dependency is not just that the things that we have are made for today. A lot of the things are not made for today. Right. They were made for, there's COBOL running for the banking system is run by COBOL. Like, is that because that's the best programming language to use today? Hell no. Right. It's because somebody from IBM sold them a mainframe back in the 80s, and that's what they had. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the year is 2023. Right. Great example here. An LLM is fantastically capable of transferring things between languages. You can say, like, can you take this code that nobody wants to touch, and the guy that wrote it is dead, right? And we barely know how to keep it running, and just transform it into a new language, and it's going to be like, sure, boss. Here you go. Like it is phenomenally good at that, right? Because
that's actually, I hadn't thought about that, but it's super cool because it can even do it. You tell me if I'm wrong, but it can even do it from machine code.
Yep.
Right, from the compiled code, it could work
reverse engineering. Basically, you might not even have the source code. You might just have the binaries.
Right,
which can work
would
backwards.
Be an absolute nightmare for human programmers. Right.
But again, right, it cuts both ways, because this also defeats certain fragile but maybe barely working security measures that people are using to not get their code discovered, right? They'll ship a binary. Hey, now I can take your binary and turn it into source code again, right? What happens in that world? Like, basically, the way I describe it is that the friction weights have been radically redistributed, and people don't fully understand that yet. Things that used to be hard are easy, and things that used to be easy are hard. So it used to be easy to not send people your source code. You just send them your binaries, right? And that gave you security for your software company. Well, that's gone. There are certain things that you could achieve in certain ways that are adversarial to others, basically, that are no longer possible, right? So the disruption is, I mean, if anything at all is guaranteed, I know I say people should be less certain, but the disruption, I think, is kind of baked in at this point.
Now,
the answer you gave me, the bringer of happy, joy. If any,
no. I appreciate that about you. You've never been there. You've never said anything about this not being very, very dangerous, which left me a little bit perplexed about your enthusiasm for the good parts of it, until what you said to me when we talked about this last time was that you considered the trajectory that we were on already so dangerous that the idea that something has just emerged that could in principle address the fundamental fragility of the system was a net good thing, right? That basically we are headed somewhere dire, and the tools with which to fix the fundamental problems have now emerged. They've emerged in a context that isn't safe and carries many dangers of its own, but nonetheless, the capacity to fix the dangers that we were stuck with already is substantial and really couldn't be more important, which I thought was an excellent and novel argument as far as I know.
And I mean, to put it in Game B terms, hey, we're here, why not?
Right, why not?
It gives the ability for novel coordination mechanisms to emerge that we just could not have pulled off, right? The human firmware, as I'm sure you given the title of the book you wrote, can coordinate, I don't know, a few hundred souls at best. How much, a lot of what we're witnessing now is basically the evidence of that, its failure to operate at, billion scale.
Yep.
And really the bull case, to use a financial term here, is that, hey, wouldn't it be amazing if something could create an adjusting abstraction layer, so to speak, that could actually scale our native firmware, make things feel natural while we are coordinating 8 billion people, make our reputation scale, for instance, right? Reputation used to mean something. People didn't lie for a reason. And turns out that's the strategy of lying now is people do it less honestly than they probably could, because we're still like going on momentum, but it kind of works, right? If you know what you're doing, and if you've done it enough, you practice enough, you can do it well. But all of that used to be kept in check, and my sort of bull case for the for the people who like complex systems is not that we will make novel systems. I mean, we'll do some of that, but maybe we can kick some of the old systems back into functioning mode.
Yeah, no, I like this idea too. There are many problems in game theory that are actually trivially simple to solve on paper and devilishly difficult to solve in practice. And that this actually, even, forget a billion people, even just solving a problem inside of an organization so that people's interests align can be very difficult because of game theory that upends you. I can see obvious ways that even just today you could have this thing build a structure that would solve some of those issues, and that could be a very positive thing.